Trump at least is upfront, direct, and telling you, I want this. Biden administration was indirect, and therefore it was always difficult to understand what the intent was. Was it pro-India? Was it anti-India? Was it only transactional? That was the issue, because there were mixed signals, as we are all aware.
Welcome to the Gist on StratNewsGlobal. I am Surya Gangadharan. With me is Nitin Gokhale, Editor-in-Chief of StratNewsGlobal, and we're going to take a review of Modi's visit to the White House and his discussions with Trump. So first question, what's your overall takeaway from this visit?
Well, I mean, it's there for everyone to see, but if you really look at the whole list of outcomes and this joint statement that has been put out, my sense is that both sides were trying to gauge each other. And in a way, for India, it's a good thing that this meeting has happened very early in Trump's second term as president, because Trump is really moving at a breakneck speed, especially in internal issues, trying to reform bureaucracy, government, governance everywhere. And he's also moved very fast on the Russia-Ukraine war, for instance. So it's better to get a sense up front before he starts putting it in stone, all the decisions, and then difficult for India to reverse. So that's first point. Second point is most of the announcements are about intent. And my sense is some of the programs have been just renamed to sort of take ownership again by the new administration. So for instance, the Indus X, which was an initiative for innovation, defense innovation, has now been called Indus Innovation, for instance. ISET has been renamed into Trust. And overall relationship has also been acromanized, if that's the word to use, into compact. So that's my first reaction to today's White House meeting and the subsequent press conference.
So let's look at compact, since you've already raised it.
Yes.
It seems primarily military in orientation.
Oh, it does. Compact, let's, for our viewers' sake, let's expand it. It says catalyzing opportunities for military partnership, accelerated commerce and technology for the 21st century. So if you see three elements in this, two of them are actually defense and technology, or high-end technology. So that is something that I think both sides welcome and both sides are keen on. India wants, for instance, underwater technology, underwater domain awareness technology. US wants AI and quantum to be in partnership with like-minded countries. And all the science and technology initiatives that were taken under ISET are now coming in here. As far as defense partnership is concerned, it's still very iffy. US intent is very clear. It wants to sell more platforms and some more to India, because India is a big defense market. But accelerated commerce, certainly, because then that goes into trade. And they have announced, both have agreed to double the bilateral trade to about $500 billion by 2030. So therefore, it sort of encapsulates the intent on three main pillars, compact. But there is a subtle reading that the Chinese might do, who are experts at hair splitting, since it is being called military partnership, as opposed to defense cooperation between India and the US. They might see this as they might read this as India being now totally totally allied with the US rather than being aligned with the US. So I think that's something that we have to watch out for, how China reacts to this development or this meeting in the White House.
A quick word on the military hardware that we are buying. More P8Is, more...
Chinooks are still pending. There is also the Striker combat, wheel combat, the troop carrier, which is a land system, and a Javelin missile, which the US has been trying to sell for almost 15 years now. In fact, there was a trial carried out in high altitude, and from what I'm told, they had brought a 20-year-old Javelin missile, which was stationed in Iraq and which failed to hit the target. So I don't think that is such a high-end kind of a item that India is really interested in. Yes, US can pressurize India, but the big elephant in the room is the F-35, which for the first time a US president has actually named an airplane or a fighter jet that he intends to sell to India. It's an intention, mind you, because it says in a joint statement right at the end of the defense segment, where it says the US will review the policy to release fifth generation platform, fifth generation aircraft platform or air platform and undersea technologies. So intent will get a lot of time to translate. Indian Air Force will assess it. It will look at it, look at the efficacy, the cost, all that. So I think it's too early to say whether it will come or not. There will be a lot of pressure because India, of course, needs fifth generation aircraft. But what happens to its own program, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, will then be the question. Of course, the Russians had brought Su-57 to Aero India. And as you know, there was a lot of big buzz about the two being together, parked next to each other in Bengaluru. But that apart, I think what is more important in the defense partnership is something about trying to negotiate a reciprocal defense procurement agreement, which translated means that Indian companies can sell their defense platforms, components, more easily in the US market or for the US Armed Forces. But when will that happen? Because this is only talking about opening negotiations this year for the reciprocal defense procurement. So many of these things are intended. And therefore I'm saying that my first impression, as I told you, is about intent. We'll have to see how it goes, because many programs have been intended to be very successful, but they haven't gone as successful as in the past. But this was important for India, mainly to engage with the new Trump administration.
You think we really need those armored vehicles?
Not really, because the Indian companies have already developed them. Many of them, two of them at least, have been inducted into the Indian Army. And then you are killing your own policy or affecting your own policy. So I think this is something that the US has been pressurizing India for almost 2 years now. So it's a continuity of that pressure. I would think ultimately what will happen is India will offer to buy more transport aircraft, C-130 for the Air Force, which also adds to its airlift, strategic airlift if they want. It can buy, like they've already said, P-8I, half a dozen more P-8Is. It's an advanced stage of negotiations in terms of sales. And maybe agree to some Striker procurement, but co-production to be done in India. And that's about it in the medium term, short to medium term, I would think.
That would kill the indigenous program, isn't it?
That would, but I mean, somewhere you'll have to compromise and say, okay, we'll take this much limited quantity. Because instead of Javelin, then either you take Javelin or you take Striker. But I think India is more interested in underwater capability, technology capability, and that program called Autonomous System Industry Alliance has got 4 or 5 programs that have been detailed on how they are cooperating with each other. Not big, but high-end technology companies in US cooperating and co-opting and co-production with Indian companies. I think given the contest in the Indian Ocean and Bay of Bengal and the Malacca Straits, I think underwater capability, autonomous systems as well as undersea systems for India are going to be important. I think India will then sort of offset that with not taking F-35s, I think.
In terms of UAVs and drones,
yes.
Any addition to those
Predators? No, they've already been announced, they've been contracted. So they will take another 3 years to be completely sort of produced, manufactured for India. And by the time they come into Indian Navy, 15 of them and 8 each into the Army and the Air Force, it's going to be at least 3 years. And that's a big contract that has been given already, $3 billion. I don't think there is much to be done in that space. Of course, one can do research, because there is also this component about MOU between the US National Science Foundation and the Indian Anusandhan National Research Foundation. So where I think the future technologies will be jointly pursued, and that's where I think it's more important to have US on your side.
So really the technology doors that were opened some time ago, I think that process is deepening.
Deepening, and which is a good thing, because then it broadens the relationship rather than being focused narrowly on just defense sales. This actually is a long-term process, and I think the MOU is a very good beginning, because this ANRSF RFS that has been done in India, Anusandhan Research Foundation, I think that's a new beginning, and we should welcome that actually.
Let's move to the civilian dimension. They're talking of modular reactors. Finally, the 2008 nuclear deal is seeing some signs of moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. But that's because India has now agreed to do away with the liability clause. And which of course will be seen as in some quarters as a sellout. But you can't expect American companies to come here and be held liable, because we have an old example of the Union Carbide and other industrial houses that time. Not that it will immediately translate into big businesses, but at least it's a start and it's a tweaking of that nuclear deal, or at least the fallout of the nuclear deal is now coming to fruition. Really.
What about other aspects of cooperation in the civil domain?
I think civil domain, there are this multilateral cooperation on I2U2, cyber. There is also this IMEC that they have spoken about, that they will sort of restart the process on IMEC, which is the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Although Trump got it wrong, he said it's going to Italy instead of saying Saudi Arabia. And but there are two other things, like I mentioned, pharma and strategic mineral recovery initiative. I think strategic minerals are going to be more and more important going forward for chips and other materials that you need, advanced materials. So that is something to be looked at. But the headline grabbing thing is, of course, agreeing or announcing the extradition of Tahawur Rana, one of the perpetrators of the 26/11 attack in Mumbai in 2008. I think that's something very concrete to begin with. Trade negotiations will be hard and bitter sometimes. You are a better place to talk about that. It's also spoken about illegal migration and the legal migration, the distinction between the two. And I will not be surprised if 2 more or 3 more flights deporting illegal migrants come back to India soon, very soon, in that sense. Energy, Trump being transactional, he's talked about selling more oil and gas to India, which again India will have to balance between Russia and the US, which might affect our relationship in the Gulf. Or maybe our consumption is going up so fast that we need all of them in the basket, really.
I think even the Russian discounts are drying up.
Discounts are drying up right now, and if they do a deal, Russia and the US, sort of they get pally,
then it opens
the door for us. So we'll have to see. But I mean, that multi-alignment policy is always fraught with this danger, that you're friends with everyone, but at the crunch time, nobody's with you in that sense. So that risk, I think India is aware of, and I don't think it has to be frowned upon or one has to fret about it. I think the diplomats and the decision makers will go through it and see how they can manage this relationship.
Word on space. Are we getting together again on?
Oh yes, the space has been steadily increasing. The cooperation has been increasing there. The issue is how much will NASA and ISRO cooperate, because even last time when Prime Minister Modi went to White House in June 2023, the space thing was one of the highlights under ISET and otherwise. So ISET has now been renamed, as I said, as Trust, transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology, which talks about defense, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, quantum, biotechnology, energy and space. So which I think clearly says accelerating AI infrastructure. AI is not just the buzzword, but that's the future. So I think this is where India, I think, will have to be very clear what it wants from the US. High-end technology, breakthrough technology, deep technology, everything.
That'll come for a price.
It'll come from a price. So the price has to be paid in terms of what defense platforms you buy from the US. But like I said, all that is in the future. I think India's got a breathing space up to until the Quad Summit happens in India this year, in-person Quad Summit. Then Trump will come hard and fast and say, okay, what has happened to my demands, the asks that I have. And then by the time, I think India should have known the way things are going in terms of global economy, global geopolitical scenario, all that will be clear. But this early engagement, I reiterate, was important.
So last question, when you look at the earlier Biden administration and now, would you say the intent on both sides is the same? Or would you say the Biden thing had more of the need to come closer to India and build ties, whereas this one is more cold-minded, cold-bloody-minded?
Cold-bloody-minded, more transactional upfront, but I would think that this is better because the Biden administration had duplicity. Yeah, you know where you stand and you know where exactly the Trump administration wants you to be.
Yeah.
In the Biden administration, there were multiple voices, and there were while there was the White House was completely sort of in favor of good relationship with India, deepening the relationship with India. There were elements which were undermining the relationship and India. On various issues. So there was Bangladesh, there was human rights, there was talk about democracy backsliding, US aid. Trump has unraveled US aid completely. So all that will have an effect. It has had an effect on India and some of the agricultural research and scientific research institutions, certainly. But the swamp is being drained by Trump. In that, many people will get washed away, many institutions will get washed away. And we'll have to see a new beginning there. So Trump at least is upfront, direct, and telling you, I want this. Biden administration was indirect, and therefore it was always difficult to understand what the intent was. Was it pro-India? Was it anti-India? Was it only transactional? That was the issue, because there were mixed signals, as we are all aware, what happened during the Biden administration. I mean, on one hand, they were saying India is the strategic partner, important partner fight against China. But India is also a country which is going the wrong way. It is going toward Russia. I don't think he says that you don't be friends with Russia. Trump hasn't said that. He hasn't said that, and he doesn't say it also, because he also wants to be friends with Russia in that sense. So that way, I would think that the Indian government will prefer this kind of an approach rather than the Biden administration's approach.
Final question.
Yes.
In terms of China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, anything of that?
So China, that's something that India needs to watch out very clearly, because if he shakes hands with China and then does a compact, to use that term, with China, then India is left high and dry. Because and therefore, this cautious approach by India is always because of this big shadow called China. Because there is no guarantee in Indian mind that any US administration will not do a deal with China.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just leave India high and dry. And therefore, India has to keep its options open. And I think that's my takeaway. Pakistan, I don't think is... Pakistan will be worried because Tahir Rana is coming. India is getting defense platforms. It's also about illegal migrants going. Legal mobility is being tweaked and probably made more efficient. So I think nothing to do with that, but interesting comment Trump made on Bangladesh, since you asked about Bangladesh, was I will leave Bangladesh to Prime Minister Modi. Now, was it the question or was it the policy on Bangladesh? We don't know. And that's Trump for you. He's made that statement in front of all the cameras. Now let people decide what they want to, the way they want to interpret it. But I'm sure Bangladesh observers, Bangladesh government will be watching where it goes.
So interesting perspective, Nitin. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
And I think looking ahead, let's see what the India-US thing throws up. That's all we have for you now. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.